The reason your life feels stuck isn't because nothing is changing. It's because you keep tuning into the same version of it, like a radio signal you've been locked on for years. The songs change, the commercials change, but the station, the frequency, it's the same. And you didn't even realize you were the one holding the dial. We've been told like that what's ahead is brand new, untouched, undiscovered. But what if I told you, most of what you're experiencing today isn't the future at all? It's a replay, a rebroadcast of a frequency you've been sending out without even knowing it. Every reaction, every assumption, every silent expectation is like a fingerprint on the quantum field. And the field, it reorganizes itself to match the signal you're broadcasting. So you try to change your job, or find a new relationship, or start fresh in a new city. And for a moment, it feels different. Until the old feelings creep back in, the same invisible weight on your chest, and you wonder, why am I back here again? It's because you never really left. Not in frequency, not in identity. You moved locations, but you kept the same lens. You switched scenery, but not the signal. Today, we're going to change that, not by forcing the outer world to bend to your will, but by shifting the inner frequency that's been quietly calling every scene into place. Because when you change the station, when you tune into a new version of yourself, reality doesn't just look different. It is different. Think about it. If you wake up tomorrow and you feel the same way you felt yesterday, you've already chosen the station before you even stepped out of bed. That's why the scenery changes, but the story stays the same. It's not that life refuses to move forward, it's that you keep handing it the same script, and life simply performs the lines you've been rehearsing in your mind. You may not speak them out loud, but the field hears them. Every sigh, every mental picture, every quiet, anxious thought before you check your phone, every moment you prepare for disappointment before it arrives, that's the broadcast. That's the real signal you're sending. And the quantum field doesn't care if that signal is conscious. It only mirrors. It only reflects. It only rearranges itself to match the frequency you've stabilized. This is why two people can walk into the same room and have completely different experiences. Same people, same air, same moment in time. Most people believe their life is shaped by the big events, the promotions, the heartbreaks, the decisions that seem monumental. But the truth. Your reality is built in the moments you barely notice. The mornings you wake up and feel the same emotion as yesterday. The way your shoulders tense when you think of your future. The story you tell those are the quiet choices, the unconscious observations. And each one is like placing another brick into the structure of the same reality you keep living in. Here's the part no one told you. You don't have to keep building that same structure. You can drop the brick. You can change the design. You can step away from the old blueprint entirely. But first, you have because without awareness, the pattern continues. Not because you want it, but because you've been rehearsing it so well. The field assumes it's the reality you prefer. So, ask yourself when you think about your day, do you anticipate joy or problems? When you open your messages, do you expect good news or bad? Every answer is a signal. Every signal is a selection. And every selection is an invitation for the universe to match you. Your frequency doesn't stay the same because life is against you. It stays the same because the mind loves the familiar. Even when the familiar is uncomfortable, the mind craves patterns. It finds safety in repetition. It convinces you that known equals secure, even if the known is a reality you no longer want. This is why people relive the same kinds of relationships, why they find themselves in different jobs, but with the same frustration, why they set new goals, but feel the same doubt creeping in. It's not fate. It's not bad. It's not a curse. It's simply the body and mind running an old program, one you forgot you could uninstall. And the program is this: observe reality as it has been, instead of as it could be. You see the numbers in your account, and you decide what they mean. You look in the mirror, and you decide what you are allowed to feel. You watch the news, and you decide, and every agreement becomes an anchor. So the question isn't, why won't life change? The real question is, what am I still agreeing to, without realizing it? The moment you see the agreement, you have the power to break it. Not through force, not through endless effort, but through the simplest and most overlooked shift: choosing a new lens. Think of your observation like a camera filter. If the filter is cracked, the image will always carry that distortion, no matter how beautiful the scene in front of you is. Most people spend their lives trying to rearrange the scene. They change locations. They change people. They change circumstances, but they never swap the filter. And so, no matter what changes outside, it still looks and feels the same inside. The real breakthrough is this: you don't need to fight the old filter. You simply start looking through a different one that belongs to the version of you who already lives the life you've been asking for. That version exists. It's not some fantasy. It's not someday. It's already here, waiting for you to tune into its frequency. And the moment you do, life begins to reorganize. Not over years, not after endless struggle, but the moment the signal changes, the field responds. Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape the world, but to see it differently. Imagine the version of you who already has what you've been asking for. The one who wakes up with peace instead of tension. The one who walks into every room with quiet certainty. The one who doesn't wait for proof before believing. How they breathe. How they carry themselves when no one is watching. Now, ask yourself, what would they notice in this moment that my current self has been ignoring? What would they no longer react to? What would they no longer believe about themselves? And here's the shift: start observing your life through their lens. Not in a distant meditation, but in the middle of your day. When you check your bank account, do it from their perspective. When you speak to someone, speak with their certainty. When you think about the future, see it through their confidence. Because the moment you borrow their eyes, you begin broadcasting their frequency and the field. It can only reflect the signal you hold. Your mind can imagine a new reality. Your words can declare it. But if your body is still carrying the chemistry of the old one, you'll always feel the pull backward. This is why emotional coherence matters. It's when your thoughts, your feelings, and your energy are all telling the same story. If your mind says, "I'm free," but your chest feels tight, there's static in the signal. If you visualize abundance, but your stomach knots every time you think of money, there's static in the signal. The field doesn't just listen to one channel. It listens to all of you, mind, body, and emotion, at the same time. And when those channels are in harmony, your broadcast becomes crystal clear. So ask yourself, what does the version of me who already has this feel in their body? Where is the ease? Where is the openness? How do they breathe when they're not afraid? And then, breathe that way now. Stand that way now. Let your shoulders drop. Let your heart space expand, because the more you align your body with your vision, the more your energy field stops sending mixed messages. And a clear signal is the fastest way to collapse the distance between someday and now. Shifting once is easy. Holding the shift. That's where transformation happens. The world will try to pull you back. Old habits will whisper in your ear. Familiar emotions will knock at the door, inviting you to return to the comfort of what you've always known. That's why focus must be trained, not just in meditation, but in the middle of your real life. When something challenges you, don't ask, "Why is this happening?" Ask, "Which version of me is about?" When you notice your mind drifting, gently bring it back, not to the problem, but to the perspective of your future self. Set quiet reminders in your day. A note on your desk, a phrase on your phone screen. A simple cue that says, "Return to the frequency." Because the moment you notice you've left it, you can choose again, and every time you choose again, you strengthen the signal. Soon, this isn't something you practice. It's simply who you are. Your old lens fades away, and your new one becomes the only way you know how to see the world. That's when reality starts to feel different, not because it suddenly changed, but because you finally stayed on the station you were meant to live on. Awareness is the first shift. Practice is the second. But embodiment, that's the lock. Embodiment means the new frequency is no longer a thing you visit. It's the place you live. It's not a morning exercise. It's not a try harder moment when things go wrong. It's your default. It's your baseline. Here's how you lock it in. Each morning before the world speaks to you, speak to yourself as the future you. Not in hollow affirmations, but in full presence, feeling the weight of their certainty, their ease, their quiet knowing. Then move. Walk across the room as they would. Hold your shoulders like they do. Breathe at their pace. Let your body rehearse a life it hasn't lived yet, because the body doesn't know the difference. Repeat this at night. Close your eyes and recall the moments you stayed in frequency today. Feel gratitude for each one, no matter how small. Let that gratitude sink deep into your nervous system, so your body starts craving that state like oxygen. Do this long enough, and the old frequency won't just fade. It will feel unnatural. And when it feels unnatural, you won't have to force yourself to avoid it. You'll simply stop tuning in. There's a moment in this work that no one warns you about. It's the space where nothing seems to be happening. And yet, everything is rearranging behind the scenes. You've been holding the new frequency. You've been walking as your future self. You've been living in the emotional state of already. But on the surface, the numbers haven't changed. The circumstances still look familiar, and doubt starts whispering. Is this even working? This is the point most people break the signal. They let the old frequency slip back in, not because it was stronger, but because they didn't know how close they were. The quantum field works like this. You hold the vibration long enough, and reality will reach a tipping point. The particles that were once scattered in possibility suddenly lock into place. It feels like nothing is happening. And then, snap, an opportunity appears out of nowhere. The call comes. The door opens. What felt far away is suddenly standing in front of you. That snap is not luck, it's the universe. The field will whisper before it shouts. The signs appear quietly, almost in ways your old self would overlook. You'll notice you're reacting differently. Situations that used to trigger you now pass through without stealing your peace. You'll catch yourself thinking thoughts that the old you would never have considered possible. The inner criticism softens, the body feels lighter, as if it's no longer bracing for impact. Synchronicities start to appear, small alignments that feel too precise to be random. A conversation at the perfect time. An idea that drops into your mind uninvited. A stranger's words echoing exactly what you've been feeling. Even challenges will feel different. Instead of pulling you down, they'll feel like gentle tests to see if you'll hold your frequency when it matters most. These are not accidents. They are the field confirming. You've shifted, keep going. Most people miss these signs because they're too busy searching for the big result. But the big result is built on these subtle changes. Ignore them. And you risk slipping back. Honor them, and you accelerate the timeline. The final stretch is where identity decides if it will stay changed. It's where the old version of you makes one last attempt to pull you back into the comfort of what you've always known. This is where most people unknowingly reset the dial. They take one old reaction, one old belief, one moment of doubt, and the station slips back to its previous setting. But you're not here to go back. You're here to seal the change. Here's how. First, anchor the new self in your body daily, not just in thought, but in how you walk, how you speak, how you breathe. Your body needs to memorize this version of you until it feels as familiar. Second, speak only from the station you want to live on. No stories about how it's always been. No rehearsing the pain you've already decided to leave behind. Every word is a signal, and the field is always listening. Third, celebrate the smallest confirmations, the tiny wins, the subtle alignments. They are proof that, and what you celebrate, you strengthen. Do this long enough, and there comes a day when the old self no longer fits. Its voice feels foreign, its fears feel irrelevant, and you realize you've crossed over. Once the shift is stable, it doesn't have to stay limited to the area you started with. The same frequency that transformed one part of your life can ripple through all of it, because the field doesn't separate money from health or relationships from purpose. It responds to the whole of you, your baseline state, your signature vibration. So if you've tuned into the version of yourself who lives in peace with their finances, that peace will start to touch the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you connect with others. If you've embodied the version of you who walks with confidence, that confidence will show up in your conversations, your decisions, and the opportunities you attract. You don't have to manifest each thing separately. You don't have to fix every category of your life one by one. When you change the station, every song that plays will match it. This is where manifestation, not because you're forcing outcomes, but because your entire being is tuned to a reality where what you desire is natural, and everything you need is already woven into it. A shift is powerful, but a sustained shift, that's life changing. It's easy to hold a new frequency when everything is calm, when there are no unexpected bills, no difficult conversations, no sudden twists in the road. The real mastery is keeping it alive when the world tests it, because life will, not to punish you, but to see if this is truly who you are now. Here's the truth. The old version of you isn't gone on day one. It lingers in the background, waiting for a moment to slip back in. And that's okay, because now you'll recognize it instantly. The moment you feel that old fear, that old impatience, that old scarcity creeping in, pause, breathe, and choose again. Don't fight it. Don't shame it. Simply remind yourself, that's not my station anymore. Every time you return to your chosen frequency, you reinforce the new identity. And eventually, returning won't be necessary, because leaving it will feel impossible. That's how you know the change is permanent, when the old self feels like a stranger, and your new frequency feels like home. This isn't about adding more tasks to your day. It's about creating one simple moment that tells the universe and yourself, this is who I am now. Here's the ritual. Morning before you touch your phone, before you check the world, close your eyes and step into the version of you who's already living your vision. Feel their breath and open your eyes only when that feeling is steady. Midday, pause for 60 seconds. Notice your state. If it's drifted, gently return to the frequency. Adjust your posture. Breathe deeper. Speak one sentence as your future self. Night, before sleep, replay the moments you held the frequency today. Even the smallest one. Let gratitude wash over you until it feels heavier than any doubt. This ritual isn't about perfection. It's about repetition. Because the field doesn't respond to occasional bursts of energy. It responds to the signal you hold most consistently. And when you do this every day, your chosen frequency becomes less of a practice and more of a home you never leave. Most people move through life believing they're passengers, being carried by the currents of circumstance. But you've seen the truth now. You're not just in the boat. You're steering it. You're choosing the direction every time you decide what lens to look through. Every observation is a brushstroke. Every feeling is a blueprint line. And every day, you're building the structure you'll live in tomorrow. So the question is no longer, will things ever change for me? The question is, what reality am I building today? The moment you own that role, the role of the architect, the old feeling of helplessness disappears, because now you know. It's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about creating the climate you want to live in, and the climate always starts within. You've lived in climates you didn't choose, emotional weather that seemed to arrive without warning, storms of doubt, clouds of fear, seasons of scarcity. But those patterns were never random. They were the natural forecast of the frequency you held. Change the signal, and the climate changes with it. When you hold gratitude, you invite calm skies. When you hold confidence, you invite open horizons. When you hold love, you invite warmth into every space you enter. And here's the secret. The new climate doesn't have to take years to arrive. The moment you stop rehearsing the old weather and start broad 1 degree at a time, one choice at a time, until one day you realize you've been living in the new season so long that the old one feels like another lifetime. This is your moment, not someday. Not when the timing feels perfect now. You've seen how reality works. You've seen that you're not just watching life happen. You're choosing to feel the version of you who already lives the reality you've been asking for. Stand as them. Decide as them. observe as them. Because the moment you hold that frequency, the field begins to rearrange itself around you. Don't wait for proof before you believe. Believe and watch the proof arrive.